Okay, welcome. This is a quick demo on how to make animated GIFs using Photoshop. So there is no standard dimensions for animated GIFs, but a quick Google search will give you more than enough confusing information than you need to know. What we should keep in mind is you really want your file size to be as small as possible. This says 8 megabytes or less. I would say probably 1 megabyte or less, especially if you're trying to put it on social platforms. And pixel dimension wise, more often than not, they're smaller, but there's no specific size. The only thing I saw was there's a 500 pixel width maximum for Tumblr. Okay, so you could Google search as well. Let's get to making some artwork. You can animate either static frames of photographs or screen grabs, or you can animate vector artwork. Either way, we're going to do the actual animating in Photoshop. But if you were going to start with some vector artwork like a logo file or an icon, you would start in Illustrator. So I am in Illustrator right now. I have this little sun that I created. What we're making in the end is frame by frame animation. So think of it almost like stop motion animation where every frame is static and we are animating the transitions between the frames to create the sense of movement. What that means for us and this little sun is I'm going to create multiple artboards that show each different bit of movement or layout of my sun, and then I'm going to bring it into Photoshop and we'll put all the different artboards into their own layers and then animate the transitions between the layers to create a sense of movement. Let's get started. So the easiest way to create the animation is to keep duplicating your artboard so that you know the artwork is in the exact same spot from frame to frame and you're making the adjustments precisely. I think it's also sometimes easier if you're going to create an animation where things are building upon each other that you actually work backwards and you start with maybe the finished product, the final frame, and then kind of animate into what the first frame would look like by removing different objects. So it kind of depends on what type of animation you're going to create as far as if you're going to create frames going forward in time or back in time. Either way, I have the artboard tool selected over here on the left, and I'm going to hold down Alt to get that double arrow, and if I hold down Shift, oopsies. Alright, hold on Alt as I click and I drag. If I hold down Shift as well while I'm dragging, it will be locked into a nice horizontal plane. Just keep it all organized. Alright, so I'm going to animate each frame. So the next frame, I think I'm going to rotate the spikies a little bit. Okay. And then I actually want to take this one and put it here. I'm just going to do, you can have as many frames as you want, but the simpler the animation, the smaller the file size is going to be. Alright, and then we're going to have the sun sort of rise into frame. So I'm just moving it lower. Oops. I need one more. Okay, so hopefully that will look like the sun is the rays are kind of rotating back and forth as it rises into the sky. So let's save this Illustrator file. Okay, so it's saved as an AI. Now I'm going to go into Photoshop and create a new file. I believe my artboard was 200 by 200 pixels, so we're going to have the same size artboard in Photoshop. 72 dpi is fine because, again, this is for web. Web resolution is 72. RGB, again, because it's a digital application. And if you want a white background, that's fine. If you want a transparent background for like GIFs can be transparent, you could do that too. We're going to say transparent. Great. Okay, so here is our little animation. So let me delete that. Okay. Here is essential. So this is probably what your Photoshop looks like. Alright, so I have a 200 pixel canvas with nothing on it. It's transparent. Let's add back in our artwork as individual layers. So each one of those Illustrator artboards is going to be its own Photoshop layer. Here's the layers panel. If you were trying to animate stills or photography, you would start at this step where you would just bring in each of your photographs and again place them in individual layers into your Photoshop file, just one on top of each other. We'll go up under File, Place. So you have two placing choices. It's up to you if you place linked though, and there's something that you don't quite like in your animation, it hopefully will update automatically if you change the Illustrator file. So I think we're going to do linked. I think that will streamline our workflow a little bit. Alright, this is my Illustrator file. Place. The only annoying thing is you can't select all the frames at once, so I have to select them one at a time. I'm going to bring them in back to front since I created this in reverse order and I want my sun to rise. You have a couple cropping options. I'm going to do the trim box. You can see how that just shifted everything. Trim box would be the actual frame of your artboard that you set up, right, where it would trim to. The art box or the bounding box is going to get you a little bit more of the actual artwork, even though it's like I had it cut off like on this artboard 5. I just want the spikes, but I want them at the bottom of my frame, so bounding box is not really what I want. We're going to do trim. That's really what I want. Okay. So we'll start with 5. You can see it's highlighted in blue. That's the frame I'm on. I just clicked on it. Okay, and then it came in. You can see it's right here. You have to hit the check box to accept it. Okay. We'll just keep repeating ourselves. 4. Oops. Trim. There we go. 4. Oh, check. File, place linked. Trim. If your artwork is all within the frame, within your artboard frame, you could just leave it on the default bounding box. That's fine. 3, 2. One more. 1. Okay. And you can see, since each layer is transparent, that the artwork is sort of one on top of each other. So if I turn the eyeballs on and off, you can kind of get a sense of the animation. Hopefully the spikes are rotating as well. I guess we'll find out as we bring it in here. Alright, so now I have a bunch of layers. I don't need layer 1 because it's blank. We can delete that. Okay, let's animate this guy. So the panel I need opened is called Timeline. Up under Window, the very bottom, it says Timeline. Okay, so then it loads to this bottom portion of my Photoshop. You get two options here on this button. You can create a video timeline or a frame animation. We are creating frame animation, so make sure that one is checked. And then it's not super intuitive, but after you have the correct words in this gray box, you actually click the gray box and it will load in one of your layers. So we want each layer to be its own frame. So I'm going to come over to the horizontal bars on the right here, and I want to choose make frames from layers. So this one right here. Under those horizontal bars, make frames from layers. And now you can see I have 5 frames because I have 5 layers. And if I hit this little play button, you will actually see the animation super fast, right? So it works. It doesn't look awesome. We probably want to add some different timing between these layers so it maybe slows down a little bit. All right, I also think I want a blank frame. So let's add that in here. And we'll do let's see, I want a new frame. Nope. I want that to be that one. All right, maybe let's just delete all of them. We haven't done anything yet. All right, now I have 6 frames because I have a blank one. Let's do it again. Make frames from layers. There we go. There, Mom, my son comes in out of nothing. All right. You all can clearly mess around with this and probably master it more than I've mastered it. All right, let's add some spacing. And you kind of just have to mess around with the spacing. I'm just clicking these drop downs. You can type in any number that you want. Let's just give it a 1 and see what that looks like. It's a little slow. Okay. If you have familiarity with PowerPoint and those animations and creating like transitions between your slides, I feel like it's kind of the same thing. Okay. And then maybe when it's up full, I would like it to hold for maybe a couple seconds. Let's shorten these even more. I did read on my, that's cute, on my Google research that you want your GIF to be no more than 30 seconds, but 6 seconds is more ideal. I don't even think this one is 6 seconds. It's probably like 3. All right. Well, I don't know if you can really tell that the spikes are rotating, but it's definitely moving up and down. If I come in here and I edit this in Illustrator, like maybe we'll do this. See what this looks like. And I save it. And I come back here. It hopefully updated. Yep. Although I can also see that it defaulted back to bounding box. So that's sort of obnoxious. But you can see that my edits I made in Illustrator have been applied to the Photoshop file because the files are linked. So that is nice. All right. just, so what this is actually doing is it's turning off all the layers except the one that is active on the frame. So as I click on these different layers, you can see that different eyeballs are turned on. So that is what's actually happening. And then one thing you can do too, if you would like to kind of like smooth your transition, like my sun went up, if I want my sun to like come back down in the same sort of way, I can duplicate these frames. Oops. I select these frames. I can hit the plus sign to duplicate them. And then, without getting myself too confused, I just have to redo the order so that the sun now moves down. Let's see how I did. Play. And it's up, and then it goes back down. And it's up, and it goes back. So it loops, right? Animated GIFs, they loop. So that's kind of fun. Maybe this one needs a little spacing. Alright, so you can see how you can kind of mess around to create an animated GIF. You can make some adjustments in Photoshop if you want to change the trajectory of the animation, any of that kind of stuff. You can do all that in here. Oopsies. By just moving the artwork around the frame. But keep in mind, try to get the animation how you want it before you start making a bunch of extra layers, because now it's just not going to be like symmetrical anymore, right? It's kind of crazy now. But, alright, so we like our animation. We're going to save it. Sorry. Just start futzing away. Okay. Sun animation. We're saving it as a Photoshop file. Alright. And now let's save it as an animated GIF. So File, Export. We're going to say Save for Web. We want it to be a GIF. We want it to be transparent. And you can see the file size down here. So right now this is only 50K, which is great. If you're using photography and it was a much larger file size, like over a meg, one of the things you can do is reduce the number of colors. So 256 is the max, but if you reduce the amount of colors, you can see the file size greatly goes down. And like this sun picture is only using a few colors, so I could reduce the colors quite significantly, and you probably won't really notice a quality issue. If you reduce them to a certain point, see, now there's only 2 colors. 4 colors, you can start to see some pixelization, if I zoom in here, in the artwork. So best practices used to be, back when no one had high-speed internet, to have as few colors as possible, to thus have the smallest file size possible without destroying the quality of what you're doing. So we'll leave that there. That looks good. Okay, so looping forever, you can actually choose it to only loop once or to only loop a certain number of times. I can play it again to see it working. There it goes. Still looks good. Alright, so if we are happy with this preview, we just hit save. Put it back with everything else. Save. Alright, and then to go see it in action, open up, I don't think it can be Google. I think you actually have to be on a web page. Here, we'll open up Blackboard. Okay, go to my folder. Here it is. Just drag it in here. There you go. So how fun is that? There is your animated GIF. Okay, so just to recap, because it got a little rambly, I'm sorry. Make some artwork. You're going to use the timeline panel. You're going to have each frame is its own layer. So when you have all your layers put in, then in the timeline panel, you go under these horizontal lines. You do make frames from layers, and then you can hit the play button to watch it move and start adjusting the amount of time that each frame is visible. And that is what creates the sense of animation. When you're done tweaking your animation, you go under File, Export, Save for Web, and it'll come up as a GIF. You can affect the colors, and you can check on your file size down here. If your file size is still really large, even with a reduction in colors, you can also reduce the dimensions of your actual GIF. Again, so the smaller the GIF pixel-wise, the smaller the file size should be as well. You hit save, and you have a GIF. To test it out, you can just drag it into a web browser, and you can see it in action. There you go. Have fun making animated GIFs.